Say hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello. So we are Seaside Traverse Kids. And we're going to be doing some music with you guys this morning. The first song is going to be Only a Boy Named David.
Kids songs.
Kid songs. If you're a kid and you want to come up and hang out up here and sing with us, feel free.
Only a boy named David, only a little spring. Only a boy named David, but he could pray and sing. Only a boy named David, only a rippling brook. Only a boy named David, and 5 little stones he took. And 1 little stone went into the sling, and the sling went round and round. And 1 little stone went into the sling, and the sling went round and round. And round and round and round and round and round and round and round. And 1 little stone went up in the air, the joy came tumbling down. Only a boy named David, only a little sing. Only a boy named David, but he could pray and sing. Only a boy named David, only a rippling brook. Only a boy named David, but 5 little stones he took. And 1 little stone went into the sling, and the sling went round and round. And 1 little stone went into the sling, and the sling went round and round. And round and round and round and round and round and round and round. And 1 little stone went up in the air, and the tide came tumbling down.
Let's see. The next song we're gonna do is the wise man built his house upon the rock.
The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock. The wise man built his house upon the rock, and the rains came tumbling down. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up, and the house on the rock stood firm. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand. The foolish man built his house upon the sand, and the rains came tumbling down. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up. The rains came down and the floods came up, and the house on the turn went splat.
Let's see. And I think we have one more. Oh, kind things. Kind things. So, if we sing your name, you can just give us a wave. Like this. And the kids are going to be we're going to sing their names, and they'll give us a wave. So, kids, when you hear your name, just wave at the camera. Yeah.
All the kind things, all the kind things, they are in dance heart, they are in dance heart. All the kind things, all the kind things, they are in Tom's heart, they are in Tom's heart. Makes them love everybody, makes them love everybody, makes them love everybody with them love everybody, makes them love everybody with the kind things in their heart. All the kind things, all the kind things. They are in the Corrigan's heart. They are in Corrigan's heart. All the kind things, all the kind things. They are in Stephen's heart. They are in Stephen's heart. Makes them love everybody, makes them love everybody, makes them love everybody with the kind things in their heart. Makes them love everybody, makes them love everybody, makes them love everybody with the kind things in their heart. It makes them up,
It makes them up.
it makes them up,
It makes them up.
it makes them up
It makes them up
with all the
kind things, kind things.
It makes them up,
It makes them up.
it makes them up
It makes them up
with all the love everybody, makes them love everybody, makes them love everybody with the kind things in their heart. Makes them love everybody, makes them love everybody, makes them love everybody with the kind things in their heart. All the kind things, all the kind things. They are in Cameron's heart. They are in Cameron's heart. All the kind things, all the kind things. They are in Joanna's heart. They are in Joanna's heart. Makes them love everybody, makes them love everybody, makes them love everybody with the kind things in their heart. Makes them love everybody, makes them love everybody, makes them love everybody with the kind things in their heart. All the kind things, all the kind things. They are in our hearts. They are in our hearts. All the kind things, all the kind things. They are in our hearts. They are in our hearts. They are in your heart. They are in my heart. Jesus put them in your heart. Jesus put them in my heart. Jesus is in our hearts. He is in our hearts.
Lulu.
So we're happy to make do without her. But I'm very glad that we have Seaside Diverse Kids Band joining us today. And I do have, let's see if we've got this working here. Looks like we'll grab one of the other mics. Chris.
There we go.
Okay, now we have voice. All right. Well, again, welcome to City Sanctuary this Sabbath, and it is great to have the kids leading out today. There's one announcement that I want to bring to your attention. City Sanctuary, as a mission, our focus is downtown Portland typically, but we also do a little broader reach at times. And so we have a group today from our congregation that is actually planning a trip to Peru. And I'd like to ask Joanna to come up and tell us a little bit about that trip.
Woo, Peru for you.
And Lynn.
For you.
Good morning. Linda's got her boot on. She's going to Peru with her boot. So February 15 for me and 18 for Linda, we will be going to the People of Peru project in Iquitos, Peru. And if you want to look them up, they have a website, tells all about their projects. We will be doing medical dental clinics while we're there. And Linda has a list of things. There are some things that are just easier to buy here than they are there, and even cost-wise, just more cost-effective to buy here than there. And we are mindful of the weight that we can take, but so there are some things that while they'd be great to take, they just weigh too much or take up too much space to do that. But Linda has a list of things that are needed there, especially for the medical clinics, and she'll give you some of those items now, and then you can talk to one of us after church. And we have next week for me, and then the week after for her, because I'll already be gone, that, you know, things like, you know, the giant bottle of Tylenol from Costco is just a few cents for every dose here, and it's just much more expensive there.
You'll have to hold it. I'm already shaking.
Okay.
I don't do up front. In Peru, if you want a vitamin, because your food is a little bit of rice here and there, it's going to cost you $1. Kids' vitamins, adult vitamins, Tylenol, ibuprofen, about $1 a dose. 2.6 cents is what it costs for us to get 2 Tylenol pills from Costco. We're going to go down and take as many bottles as we can get in our suitcase and put them in little Ziploc bags we've already ordered. And we will pass them out to people based on their need. Joanna's going to be taking out their teeth, but she needs gauze pads. Yes, gauze pads to stop the bleeding, and then we hand them a Tylenol or whatever to go home. That's the simple part. Then there are the ladies, and I'll keep this real grown up. Imagine needing some Monistat, girls, and there's no treatment for a year until somebody brings the medicine. That's going in my luggage. I have other things if you're interested. We need Benadryl, we need, generic is great. We need all kinds of antibiotic creams, hydrocortisone. We put it in little tiny tubes of straw that Larry burns on the ends, cuts a tiny little hole, puts it in the little Ziploc bag that's this big, and they take it home for several doses so we don't have to give everybody a whole tube. We're trying real hard to make the money go as far as possible. I have lots of other ideas if you're interested. It's also on my Facebook page. If you go, you'll see where it says, how would you feel if your baby was screaming, had a high fever, and in terrible pain, and you couldn't afford the Tylenol? So you'll see a list there, and there's more.
Can we just give you money?
Absolutely. You can even specify, we are planning to take cash through the organization, so you'll get a write-off. And then if we find people that need surgeries and things, we can send them to the county hospital where it's affordable and they can get care we can't give until our surgery center is completed.
Are you guys riding motorcycles down there too?
We are not, but some of the other.
I am a passenger only because it's the only way to get there most of the time, but not always by my first choice, but not riding like Paul rides, yeah. But if you want to give money to that particular trip, you can just make a note on the donation on their website, and then, like she said, you'll get the tax write-off.
Do we give it to you, or do we put it on the website, the Peru website?
On the Peru,
If you
people,
want to give $10 and you don't care about a tax write-off, we'll go to Costco and get it for you and tell you what we spent your money on. If you want to give a little more and you want a tax write-off, it needs to go in, and then you can see where there's a Matthews Bowen team, and you can just say for that team.
So can I be kind of a jerk
yeah,
for a moment?
Yes.
I will match up to $500 if you raise it here today. Up to $500, I'll match.
okay, so you heard his
We
challenge.
don't have to do it now, but I'll match up to $500.
He'll match up to $500.
Anybody who says, we want part of that match, you're on. Now we got to spread the word to the rest
Okay,
of the church
Bunny
members
has a
really
question.
fast.
Okay, so,
I will too.
okay, the People of Peru website is, like she said, if you want a receipt, it should come through there. If you are just going to buy the bottle of Tylenol at Costco or wherever. And like she said, the generic is fine because it's just very expensive for a lot of people. It costs a lot here, but it costs really, by comparison to what people's wages are, a ridiculous amount to get one dose of something.
It's peopleofperu.org if you want to look it up. And just a quick little story. We took, I don't know, hundreds of granola bars last time because kids are starving. And I had a little boy that came to me with an abscess on his arm that was huge. His dad had just died and his mom had been dead for years, and he was 8. His uncle brought me to lance his abscess and clean it up, and I caused him a lot of pain. And after it was all over, I said to him with the granola bar, "This is for your pain." And he looked at me, and he took the granola bar and he laid it on his arm. So I explained through the translator that it was for him to eat because he'd been so brave when I was hurting him. And his face lit up. These people are hungry.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we have a few more songs that the kids will be leading out with this morning. And then following song service, we have something a little bit new in our lineup. Andrea is going to be presenting a children's story. So following song service, we've got a bunch of the kids already up here, but any of the others can come up and join for the story.
in the sight of the Lord. Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord. Humble thyself in the sight of the Lord. And he shall lift you up higher and higher, and he shall lift you up. Sing a new song in the sight of the Lord. Sing a new song in the sight of the Lord. Sing a new song in the sight of the Lord. Sing a new song in the sight of the Lord. And he shall lift you up higher and higher, and he shall lift you up. And our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, and love. Our God is an awesome God. Kneel and pray in the sight of the Lord. Kneel and pray in the sight of the Lord. Kneel and pray in the sight of the Lord. Kneel and pray in the sight of the Lord. And he shall lift you up higher and higher, and he shall lift you up. And our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above. There is no power and love. Our God is an awesome God. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above with wisdom, power, love. Our God is an awesome God. Bless the Lord, oh my soul, oh my soul. Worship His holy name. Sing like never before, oh my soul. I'll worship Your holy name. Our sun comes up. It's a new day dawning. It's time to sing Your song again. Whatever may pass and whatever lies before me, let me be singing when the evening comes. Bless the Lord. day when my strength is failing, the end draws near and my time has come. Still my soul will sing your praise unending. 10,000 years and then forevermore. Bless the Lord,
Oh, my soul. Oh, my soul.
worship His holy name. We'll sing like never before.
Oh, my soul. Oh, worship your holy name.
I'll worship your holy name. I will worship your holy name.
Thanks for singing.
Oh, The Richest Caveman. So this is a story from a book about a man who used to live in a cave. Um, yes. A few days after I had prayed that God would show me how I could witness for him, I hiked out of the canyon to make my monthly phone call to my mother. She sounded excited when she heard my voice. "Oh, Doug, guess what?" she bubbled. I was having lunch with this TV news reporter from CBS, and he thought that something about a millionaire's son living in a cave would make a good human interest story. He wants to come up and do it. "Great," I said. Being on TV sounded exciting. I guess I inherited some of Mom's love of the theatrical. "When are they coming?" I asked. "I don't know. Call me tomorrow. I should know by then," she said. I made the long hike out and back several times that week, but it was always the same. Call back tomorrow. Finally, in her frustration with CBS, Mom contacted NBC. They jumped at the story. At 9:30 the next morning, I met my mother and two television crews, CBS's and NBC's. Both crews had unwittingly boarded the same plane and arrived at the airport together. A loud argument erupted immediately over who would get the story. It was all very embarrassing to me. Mom, bless her heart, waded right in and acted as referee. "You had your chance," she told the CBS men. "My son kept making trips down and back every day, and you just kept us dangling." We're giving the story to NBC. The CBS man grew red in the face and began yelling at Mom. "Don't you realize, lady, that it takes a lot of work to set something like this up?" "This was the soonest I could get all the arrangements made," he sputtered. "That may be, but it sure didn't take NBC long to get it together," she countered. "They get the story, and that's that. Do you have any idea how much money this is costing my company? Madame, you are despicable." With that, he took his crew and stormed off. At first I wondered, Lord, why did it all have to happen this way? Later I learned that the CBS newsman had brought along a pair of leopard Tarzan shorts to wear, and he planned to make a comedy of the whole thing. God knew all along what he was doing. The flap didn't bother Mom, though. She had things organized in short order, and we started moving out. Our helicopter pilot, Pete Scott, had to make 2 trips to get everyone up to the third canyon, but it didn't take long in a chopper. What a thrill to see the trail I'd hiked over so many times from the air. It took a great deal of skill to land. There was no room to land in front of the cave, so Pete found a large boulder down canyon that was flat enough to rest one runner on, and he hovered while the passengers got themselves and their equipment off. Pete and I knew each other pretty well. He was the same Pete who worked on the search and rescue team, and he always checked with me when searching for a lost hiker. He was amused at all the fuss being made over his hippie friend. When they were ready to shoot, they gave me some instructions and began filming. First, they had me hiking up the trail with my pack on my back. Then they asked me to build a fire and cook something. They filmed my cave inside and out, my hammock, the little waterfall, the pool, my chair, and even the plastic can that doubled as a table and as a food storage container to keep the varmints out. The director said he needed to ask me some questions for the interview. Fire away, I said. Your father is a multimillionaire. Your mother is in show business. You could write your own ticket, be anything you want to be. Why do you live in a place like this, away from the comforts of civilization? I thought a moment. I guess I was a coward, running away from the discipline of life. I wanted to be able to do my own thing. Everything and everybody around me seemed so phony. It was a dog-eat-dog society. I was always getting into trouble, and I know that I had a real attitude problem. Out here, I feel great. I get plenty of sunshine, fresh air, and exercise climbing the mountain trails. I found a Bible in my cave, and it taught me about Jesus Christ. He is changing my life, and I have finally found the joy to tell the world. The joy and peace I was seeking. Now that I have found Jesus, I want to tell the world. I am a free man now, for my sins are forgiven. I wish everybody could be as happy as I am, here in my cave with God, surrounded by the things He has made. When I had finished my little speech, they filmed me playing the flute, then they put away their gear, and we all returned to Palm Springs. When will this be on TV? I asked the director. It will be on 3 times today. The 5 o'clock news, the 10 o'clock news, and the 11 o'clock news, he said. How can they do that? I asked skeptically. It's almost 2 now. Oh, you'll see, he said with a twinkle in his eye. We're professionals, remember? But I still had my doubts. There's just one thing more, I said. Please don't say where this place is. I don't want my cave turned into a tourist attraction. I understand. I'll pass that on to the chief, he promised. After we all flew down the hill, I decided to stay in town and see if they really made it in time for the 5 o'clock news. I had no TV at the cave, of course, and I wondered where I could go to watch. I couldn't just ring somebody's doorbell and ask if I could watch the 5 o'clock news. As I walked along, I spotted a hotel across the street. That's it, I said aloud. I'll ask the hotel clerk if I can watch it on the TV in the lobby. The girl at the desk reluctantly gave her permission, so I turned on the set and tuned into the news. I was so excited I could hardly sit still. I wished that I could have told some of my friends so they could see it too, but it was too late for that. Just then, I saw Joe, a policeman friend, parking in front of the hotel. I ran out and grabbed him. Come here, Joe. There's something I want to show you, I said excitedly. What is it? I'm on duty and I don't have time, he protested. It won't take but a few minutes, I assured him. They're allowing a local criminal on the 5 o'clock news. Oh yeah, his eyebrows raised? Who's that? You'll see, I said. We had to watch a while, and Joe was about to leave when a helicopter flying over the canyon appeared on the screen. In Tockwitz Canyon, just a few miles out of Palm Springs, there's a veritable paradise, the newscaster began. Oh no, I groaned. They told where my cave is. But I didn't worry about it too much right then. I was too excited seeing myself hiking the trail, building the campfire, and cooking. I shot a glance at Joe. He sat on the edge of his chair, drinking it all in. I felt like a celebrity. I did feel apprehensive about the shot of me diving into the pool, but the camera crew handled it well, just as the director had said they would. I sighed with relief. When I made my speech at the end of the program, Joe raised his eyebrows and looked at me. Are you a Christian, Doug? No one had ever asked me that since I began reading the Bible. I wondered if I were good enough to say yes. Trying to be, I responded. I'm glad to hear that, Joe's eyes twinkled. I teach a Sunday school class. Hang in there, caveman. You're on the right track. Later, one of my friends told me that he watched the newscast 3 times that day while in jail. I didn't know it then, but life for me would never be quite the same. A few days later, on my way to town, I met a hiker on Cougar Trail. Hi, where are you headed? I asked. I'm heading up to see a fellow in the 3rd Canyon. He lives in a cave. Saw him on TV, he said excitedly. With difficulty, I kept a straight face. Really, I asked. Who is he? Tell me about him. He began to tell me all about myself, adding some interesting information that even I didn't know. Finally, I could stand it no longer. "Hey, friend," I said, "there's something I'd better tell you. This guy that lives in the cave, he looked at me questioningly. "It's me. I'm that guy, the one you saw on TV. He looked at me and smirked. "Very funny," he said. "You don't look anything like this guy. I'd know him anywhere." An interesting conversation followed, and I'm not sure he ever quite believed me. After that, I never knew when I had visitors. Sometimes they came in singles, sometimes in groups. I would feed them banana bread and share my newfound happiness with them. I didn't need to worry about someone to witness to. My cave had been turned into a tourist attraction. I think God had a reason for letting the TV story report the location of my cave. And that's the end of the story, or this chapter.
So if you came in late, our brother Kevin Brissette has offered up to $500 match for Joe and for Linda to go out and shop for medicine. I like that. Go out and shop. That's kind of cool. Missionary shopping. For Tylenol, Advil, antibacterial things, all kinds of stuff like that they need in the mission field in Peru. So I know I at least have a $10 bill burning in my wallet in my car. That could buy quite a few Tylenol. I think you said they were what, 2 cents? For two? 2.6 for two? So just my $10 could alleviate a lot of pain over there. They don't have it. Well, we have tons of it. They don't have it there. So if you want to help out with matching those funds, Costco, here we come. And we're so excited that you're heading out there. How many years, Joe, have you gone? 2005?
We started.
Yep. Okay. And Linda, you've gone quite a few times. Yeah. Okay. Is it once a year, right? Okay. Well, of course. Okay. Milo? Yeah. Yeah, I really wanted to come back to this. Let's don't forget that and make that, we're missionaries here, but they don't need Tylenol here, but they do need it there. So let's remember that. Thanks for the clarification, Milo. Well, it's a beautiful day today, isn't it? Tomorrow the 49ers are in the Super Bowl. You're not supposed to talk about football, especially during the sermon time, but some of you know the story in 1982, about the 10th of December. I approached Lisa's father and asked for his blessing to ask Lisa to be my wife. So at that point, Lisa was just my girlfriend. And I was really nervous. For those men that have actually gone through that process, it's a pretty unnerving process. Because I realized there were some chinks in my armor, and I was quite sure he was going to point those out. And he said, I really do like you, Dan. And he said, but I do have one requirement, and it's non-negotiable. And if you accept my terms, you have my blessing to marry Lisa. And at that time, I was a San Diego Charger fan from the Dan Fouts era. And he said, you'll need to convert to become a wholehearted San Francisco 49er fan. So I'm thinking, San Diego Chargers, Lisa Farley. It was a quick conversion. And I did it, and I have been a loyal 49er fan since 1982. The last time they won a Super Bowl, I think August was 3 or 4 years old. So here's wishing. And we have some Kansas City here today. So I guess we probably shouldn't pray about this thing. Just let it ride. Just let it ride. Okay. Anyway, welcome today to City Sanctuary. You know, one of the things that is so important for us to understand is that when we have any authority at all given to us, how we handle authority or being in any kind of position of power, or if you ever have leverage with somebody, it is absolutely critical that you second and third guess yourself. Why is that important? When you're in a power position or the knowing position, okay, the idea that someone is needing something and you're going to now be offering something. There's a need versus someone giving, someone taking, someone needing, someone wanting. It's so important whoever's doing the giving or the sharing, whatever authority they have at the moment, it's so important that they do a gut check not once, but twice. And then after the encounter, ask themselves again, so what did I really do there? So I grew up in an era where we questioned all things authority. The generation older than me, the 60s, it kind of laid a philosophical groundwork to never trust the man. And the 70s kids, we came along and basically we had pretty much made up our mind since we had this already in place and the Vietnam War thing had played out. By the time you get to the mid-70s, we just had a real problem with authority. And that really played out in my life in school. Anything that had control over me, and also at home. So here's the deal. I finally became an authority figure at the age of 22. That's pretty young. I went from the college campus one day, graduated on a Sunday. The next day, I reported to my new job in Paradise, California, as an assistant pastor with Lonnie Melashenko. I was told in my staff meeting, you need to understand one thing, Dan. Now people are looking for hope, encouragement, compassion, and they need answers to their questions. I went from trying to remember the answers to the question on my final exams to now being the one that would be sought out to have the answers to questions. And it didn't hit me for quite a long time, unfortunately, but somewhere in my mid-30s I realized, man, I am an authority figure. People actually, they put me in a position where they're looking or hurting or needing or wanting or something, and what I actually say at least seems to have some value in the moment. I also found out that no one ever listened to me in spite of all my great advice. But it was great advice. But the thing is this, is that when you are in an authority position, you, over and over and over again, you begin to have something happen to you inside. What is it? Pride. Because, Don, I know because people keep coming to me with questions. And I keep giving them answers. And they keep coming back. And new ones come, which means I must know a lot. In fact, I must know more than them. Otherwise, they sure wouldn't come and ask me. So because we're live streaming and you didn't hear Don, I am not going to tell you what he said. It's a pretty scary thing, people. If you're self-absorbed and you're self-centered and you're thinking about yourself and people come, and you're in a position of authority and leadership, what you say, what you don't say. The story we have been following is a story about Jesus healing a man that was blind from birth. The guy never asked to be healed. He goes, God, the Lord makes spit and mud and dirt, makes clay. He goes to the pool of Siloam. He washes it off. He can now see. He comes back. They take him into the synagogue. First time for him, because if you're blind from birth, something wrong with you and you're defective, and God says so, which was what the knowledge was of the day. He finally got to go inside a church, and we left it last week with this raging conflict going on between him standing alone and who? The people who have authority. Now, some people have asked me, when you preach out of the Bible like a narrative, where did you learn that style? So I learned it from a man of color, basically a black dude from LA. Was my homiletics teacher. And I was the guy in his class that was absolutely fascinated with his teaching. We did all the book learning, but then one day he taught our class, he said, I want to tell you how the black men used to preach during slavery. So a black man had no clout, none. But the black man that could serve the Lord by preaching on Sabbath or on Sunday, that was his moment. And he was somebody. And he took that time seriously, because the next day he's out in the cotton fields again. The story is that black preaching was really born from a place where a man would read a text in the Bible, a story. He'd read it 2 or 3 times, and then he started to go work in that cotton field, working by the sweat of his brow and thinking about that story. He'd come home, wash up, have a little supper, and he'd go out to his porch if he had one. If he had a rocking chair, he used it, and he would sit in that rocking chair and rock back and forth, day after day after day. No concordances, no commentaries, no Google. And then about Friday, he would get that Bible out again and he'd read that story 3 more times. And all that week, he had been cooking. And he would take every character in the story and put himself there. So I preached my first sermon in my homiletics class with the camera. My classmates all gave me a B because I didn't wear a suit coat and I wore a really skinny tie, because those were cool back then. Maybe they still are. And I didn't look like a pastor, they said. My homiletics teacher gave me an A+. He said, because you tried really hard to put yourself in this story. And then you came and told the story to us. Don't stop doing that. The imagination that God has given each one of you in these great stories, it's amazing what you can do with them. And one of the things I did with this story is I had to take the different characters. The one I like the most is the man who was born blind, and of course Jesus. But there are other characters in the story. Who? Disciples. Okay? Parents. What you have here, you have a whole family system story. You have a whole church system story. It's a complete, total story. Okay? The one that I spent this week with was the role of the Pharisees, the priest, and really basically the clergy of the time in the church. It's a very painful place to put yourself, especially if you are one. Because I saw the traits that they had were traits that I have. I really believe that I have acquired a certain level of wisdom, hard-earned over time. What's the pitfall for that? What's the pitfall? That I've acquired it, therefore I have it, and whether you've acquired it or not is anybody's guess, but I have it. You might not have it, you probably don't have it. This thing can really get out of control, friends. So what happens? I'm a local church pastor. You can only begin to understand if Pastor Dan's a know-it-all and you can't tell him anything, where are we going to go? Where are we going to go? I, to this day, question myself before I preach, after I preach, did I actually say anything of value today? Just because I'm a Seventh-day Adventist clergyman doesn't mean I have anything valuable to say. My ordination didn't make what I had to say valuable. What happens with a denomination then, as you start to have a conference, a union, a division? What happens when you get elected to that kind of a position? You're elected to that kind of position, why? Why? How do you become an administrator that makes really important decisions for the church? Not just a local church, but the church locally, regionally, nationally, worldwide. If you get into those positions, what kinds of gifts have been manifest over time that were measurable that people could say, yeah, let's make him the president, the vice president. Let's put him in charge of the finances as the treasurer. What things are seen over time by those people to get elected? Knowledge, skill sets, wisdom. And the idea is you put someone that's wise, has common sense, and has experience in a position of authority. What's the assumption? What's the assumption when it comes to making decisions? My decisions will be good ones. Is that really true? Not necessarily at all. One of the things that really was important in my growing up was I grew up in a home where the church did not make mistakes and that God directly led through the vehicle of the administration of the church. And whatever was handed down was what? The gospel. So I put myself in the Pharisees' place. This guy comes in. He's never seen before, but now he can, and he's claiming that this guy's a prophet. Okay? And here I am, Pastor Dan. Some guy comes in, and he's telling me something I don't know. He's telling me something I don't have any experience in. My common sense, my wisdom, my age, all of that does not accommodate for the fact I was born blind, someone spit, made some mud, I put on my eyes, I washed my eyes, and now I can see. There's nothing in my frame of reference that could connect with that. And he's telling me now that there's someone out there who's not as good as me. He's much greater than me. And I have to also realize that miracle did not happen where? It did not happen in the church. It wasn't a committee process. It wasn't the smartest, wisest people coming together and getting in a unanimous vote. It happened out there. Not in here. Would that threaten me? I'd like to say no, but the truth is, it would. It would unnerve me. I pray for healing for people. I once anointed a lady's knee with Paul Newman Caesar dressing because there was oil base in it, and that's all we had. And miraculously, the Lord healed her knee, and she didn't have to have surgery. So I know it wasn't about me or Paul Newman. Okay? But when a man's born blind, friends, and all of a sudden, something happens outside of the hospital system, something happens outside of the church system, all of a sudden someone can now see, and it's somebody else out there. And that somebody else out there is the one that seems to challenge everything I believe in or stand for. How am I going to handle that? And my honest answer was not very good. I was raised, if someone comes from a different denomination and opens up the Bible and shows me something, some new truth, some knowledge, some aspect of the gospel, that I better doggone it have what? Another Bible text, and preferably 2 or 3. Huh? This is all fear, friends. It's all fear-based. The idea that maybe in all of my glory, I know absolutely nothing. The fear of that. You keep your job by striving for excellence, right? We push for excellence. And yet this story, very clearly, is about who's really blind. The person blind from birth, or those who call upon the name of God on behalf of the people. Who's really blind? So we come to chapter 9, John 9. And it says they drug him in there a second time and they said, "Give God the glory." The man who was blind, they said, "Give God the glory because we know the man that healed you is a sinner." By the way, the man never asked to be healed. And secondly, he had never met Jesus. He'd never seen Jesus. I'll say that. Then he answered, "I don't know whether he's a sinner or not. I know only one thing. I used to be blind, but now I can see." What are you going to do with that? And so they said to him, "Well, what did he do to you? And how do you open your eyes?" And he said, "I already told you, and you wouldn't listen. Why do you want to hear it again? You don't want to become his disciples too, do you?" And they ridiculed him and said, "You are a disciple of that person? We are Moses' disciples. We are a remnant. We're the remnant. We are Moses' disciples, the children of Abraham. And we know that God has spoken by Moses. But we don't know where this man comes from." And the man responded saying, "Isn't that amazing? You don't know where he comes from, but he opened my eyes." And they're blue, they're brown, they're green, they're hazel, whatever. My eyes are open. Whatever he is, whatever he is, whoever he is, I can see. And it says, "You don't know where he comes from, but he opened my eyes." And he says, and this is the guy, the homeless blind guy who can now see. He says, "We know that God doesn't listen to sinful people." This is him, not the Pharisees. "But if someone is God-fearing and does his will, he listens to him. From eternity past," this guy sounds like a real powerful guy for just getting his eyesight. "From eternity past, nobody has ever heard of anybody opening the eyes of a man born blind. If this man wasn't from God, he couldn't do anything." They answered, "Everything about your birth was sinful." You were dirty in the womb and coming out, man. Everything about you sinful. And you're trying to what? Teach us? God forbid that I ever get to that place, man. If you do, you guys don't shoot me, but, tranquilize me or something. Really. You're trying to teach us, Pastor Dan? That's me saying to someone that comes in out that door, shuffling their feet, homeless. And I'm here saying, you were born in sin, and what could you possibly teach me? And so what did they do? They threw him out. I'll read till verse 41. I want you to see where the church actually begins. The church has a beginning point, and it begins after you've been thrown out of the old one. That was funny. Oh, I love that. The new church begins when you're thrown out of the old one. Bible has proof. It says here, and when Jesus heard they'd thrown him out of the synagogue, Jesus went and found him. Okay, where 2 or 3 are gathered. And he said, do you believe in the Son of Man? And he answered, who is he, sir? Tell me so I may believe in him. Tell me who he is. Jesus replied, not only have you seen him, he's the one who's speaking to you now. That's where church begins, friends. The revelation of Jesus Christ to your human soul. That introduction. That's where the church begins, you and Jesus. And Jesus replied, you've seen him and it's me, I'm talking to you. And then he said, oh Lord, I believe. And what's the first thing you do when you encounter Jesus and you believe? You worship him. You don't worship where necessarily? No. And you're not letting your worship by who? The leaders of the church. You worship the person of Jesus Christ. Everybody else is sinful. And it says here, Jesus said, I want you to know I came into this world for judgment, so that those who don't see may see, and those who see may be blinded. Some of the Pharisees who were there heard this and said to him, we aren't blind men then, are we? Jesus said to them, if you were blind, you wouldn't be guilty of sin. But since in fact you say you can see, your sin remains. There's absolutely no place for a believer to ever think that they can see without Jesus. Let us pray. We would see Jesus. We once were blind, but now we see. We thank you, Lord, for this story. We're not quite finished, but I'll tell you, there's something about this idea that I know what I'm doing, I know where I'm going, I can see what's happening. I got the big picture, I've got the little picture, and I just know that is so dangerous to us. You prefer us blind, and then you prefer to heal us so that we can see, and we can encounter you, believe in you, worship you. I pray today, Lord, will be a lot of people here today that are just born blind, and we acknowledge and recognize and praise you that now you've healed our blindness and we can see. And what we see and who we see is none other than you. In Jesus' name, amen. Happy Sabbath. I wish my parents a happy 63rd anniversary this Monday. Let's give them a hand. Yeah, thank you. God bless you.